We can mute everybody right now, and then if you, yeah.
Hello and welcome. I'm Becky Garcia. I am the manager of Malvern Books. And on behalf of Malvern Books, I'd like to welcome you to the launch of Borderlands Texas Poetry Review, issue 52. It's always wonderful news. So just a couple of things before we get started. We will be posting this on YouTube Live. It's currently streaming. And then we'll upload the video. If you yourself as a participant do not want your picture to be seen, please turn off your video. Now, we also have the journal available for purchase at Malvern Books. Feel free to give us a call. We do have someone at the store. Joe is at the store right now, and we'll take your call if you'd like to order. 512-322-2097. Now, our host for the event will be Borderlands editorial team member, Bailey Cohen-Vera, who will be introducing the wonderful lineup of readers we have for the event. Bailey, take it away.
Thank you so much, Becky. Thank you so much to Malvern Books for hosting this reading. We really, really appreciate it. On behalf of everybody over at Borderlands, I'm a assistant poetry editor at Borderlands, Texas Poetry Review. It is our 52nd issue that was just released. It's an absolutely fantastic issue. Some of the readers here, again, just a small sample of the work. Really, really fantastic issue. I am so excited to finish reading it. Yeah, we have we're gonna have people's social medias, Twitter, Instagram, as well as Cash Apps and Venmo, everything in the chat to the right while the person is reading in question. So please, if there's anything we've learned from these times, it's that we have to take care of each other. So even though Borderlands is always working to get funding to pay its contributors and pay its readers, we always have to take care of each other. So $3 goes a long way. Let's buy our readers a coffee. And yeah, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the first reader, Allison Adair. Allison Adair's The Clearing from Milkweed Editions was named a New York Times new and noteworthy book. Her work has appeared in Best American Poetry and the Pushcart Prize anthology. Originally from Central Pennsylvania, Allison now lives and teaches in Boston. Allison, please take it away. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Bailey. And again, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, and thanks to Malvern Books, Ignacio, and to Bailey and everybody at Borderlands. I've been a fan as a reader of Borderlands for a really long time. So this is really exciting to get a chance to participate as a contributor. The poem that is in the issue, the 52nd issue, is called Riverbone. And I wrote it not long after. My sister lives near Four Corners in the lower San Juans. And we went camping kind of in the desert, and I found a small skull, I thought, something I couldn't identify. And as a result, I wrote this poem, which was about the entire night I tried to figure out what it could be and from what era. So I'm gonna read two short poems. The first is a Riverbone and the second is another. Riverbone. Sorry, the subway's going by outside in case you hear that. The cat slips through the closing door as if I have a secret only she knows. She's come to inquire, say the angles of her face, a lizard's trapezoid, softened by fur, providence of geography, and by tonight's blue light hazing off an unwashed mirror. Once In a canyon of the San Juans, past the line where dirt divides into eras, allegories, I knelt for what lay, white, coiled, a parched fossil shell, ammonite, ram's horn, nautilus vacated or harvested, uncrusted, a relic. Oh, ankle bone of water, vertebra of the Colorado, still gnashing, still red. The etymology of desert waves rushed in to articulate a current, unwinding itself, pulse against membrane. The cat's mink is a handful of impossible ash. She knows the story. The bleached skull I couldn't identify the next morning. Muskrat? Rock squirrel? So tight to my straining, it clung like a scorched whisper, a dam, restless, unsprung, until the succulents muscled into root, swallowing night's thin vapor, an ancient sun turning flesh again to bone. And I'll just read one other, thanks Bailey, I'll read one other poem that's very different. This is a poem that I had no idea what I was doing with when I started writing, but I got to thinking about honey and how delicious it is and how different it is in terms of how we approach it or think of it relative to another food that is processed through the organs of the body, and that is haggis, which is not delicious. So this is called Honey. Of the sheep's 4 stomachs, which would we jar, which stir into tea? Abomasum, omasum, reticulum, rumen. Amen. Cud does loop the gullet like prayer, and lettuce hem reticulum shares its name with the honeycomb's net. But for a throat flayed raw, who among us would slice the distended balloon, harvest its porridge the color of bloat, spoon it on a child's tongue? Tell me how honey's different. Even bees, crocus drunk, split their nectar, guttering most flume-like into the loose purse of a second stomach, sweet syrup reservoir. Once back at the hive, each bee regurgitates its swill into the rapture of a waiting mouth. Gut to gut, so nectar passes in chains, the fury of 20,000 wings boiling off all water. And what do we produce? What sap? Bees' profound necking falls beyond our French kiss, closer to the queer plunger of live birth. Yet, in the dim thrill of evening, we advance. Why does a body turn inside out like a sleeve at the soft shock of lips unsealing, letting us in and out like a canal's lock? To those I have kissed on granite stairs and idling trains, under a roof cut out to frame the sky, what passed between us? How did it harden? Whom does it nourish now? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison. Your poems are absolutely beautiful. Your images are so alive. The cat's mink, a handful of impossible ash. That's so good.
Oh, shout out to Elizabeth Bishop for that one. Better. That's an illusion.
And still though, the turn towards the reader in the second one and what do we produce, what sap, that was such a surprising line. Thank you so much for your poems. Up next we have Taylor Byas. Taylor Byas is a Black poet and essayist who currently lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, where she is a second-year PhD student and the Albert C. Yates Scholar at the University of Cincinnati, studying poetry. She is also the poetry editor for Flypaper Lit and the first place winner of the Poetry Superhighway contest. Thank you, Taylor, for coming.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, and thank you to Malvern Books for hosting and to all these other wonderful readers who I get a chance to read with today. I'm going to read my poem from the issue. It's a poem written about my brother and for my brother, written during a time where we were just kind of going through a lot as a family, and also just thinking about my kind of protective nature as a big sister and my brother growing up to be a Black man in this world. So this poem is called If I Could Love Life Into Him, and it has an epigraph by Claudia Rankine that reads, on the tip of a tongue, one note following another is another path, another dawn where the pink sky is the bloodshot of struck, of sleepless, of sorry, of senseless, shush. If I could love life into him. My own name cuts through the night like ceiling fan blades, pulls me from a dream. And again, until my brother's silhouette fills my bedroom doorway like a murderer's. But he doesn't yet have the posture to kill, his preteen body still prototyping danger, laying bone and muscle like brick and mortar. He can't sleep, so he uproots his mattress from its frame, drags it across the carpeted hall into my room, one long shh as the mattress irons a path. On the floor beside me, his breathing stutters as if he is restarting from a nightmare. I tell him everything about nothing, how tonight's full moon spits white against my car in the driveway, how Chicago snow will turn the emptied tree branches to drooping mustaches in a matter of weeks. His body gives the tears away, all its shuddering, so I slink down beside him, become a second blanket. I am struck that it has been over a decade since I have held him, since he has cried in my arms. He peels his wet face from the front of my shirt, tilts it upward towards me to say something, and I wish I could see his eyes. I want to know if they are now pink skies, if what has always been clear is now the color of water after a murderer has washed his hands. Thank you.
That was so beautiful. Do you have another poem or just that one for today?
Just that one. I just
Okay.
wanted to read that one.
I love the similes in that one. The trees as drooping mustaches and the mattress ironing a path on the floor. That was so imaginative. Thank you so much for reading. Thank you for your poems. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Up next we have Janice Northerns, who is an award-winning poet who grew up on a farm in rural West Texas. Janice Northerns currently lives in Kansas. Her first poetry collection, Some Electric Hum, was recently released by Lamar University Literary Press. Janice Northerns, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Shout out to Borderlands and to Malvern Books for hosting us. I'm really enjoying this so far. I feel like I'm in some pretty amazing company. I'm going to read a couple of poems. The first one is the one that appears in this issue of Borderlands. If I'm not mistaken, there was a themed call for climate change, which is what I responded to with the poem that got accepted. And so as I was thinking about climate change, I was thinking about how we're sort of doing ourselves in as a human race, thinking about the disappearance of the honeybee, and then also thinking about how, as humans, we have this tendency to want to look at disaster online. If there are shootings or car wrecks, the first thing we do is look for footage on our cell phones. And yet we don't seem to be looking very closely at how we're destroying ourselves. So I just was thinking about what would it take for us to actually look at how we're destroying the species. This is called We Can't Look Away, But We Do. Our eyes linger on the screen, search for spreading red splotches on asphalt. We are addicted to the lurch of our own undoing, feeding on viral wildfire, gawping at cell phone footage of a brother, a lover, a mother shattered by hollow points, while we roam the aisles of fluorescent fantasy. Rows of luminous plastic, Perrier, Evian, Fuji, cast an upscale glow like there's no tomorrow, even as the empties crinkle underfoot. We float on gallons of chlorinated light, the moneyed green of lush-cut lawn, sprinkler lullabying, shush, shush, shush. Flitting across our field of vision, a lone bumblebee. We lust for pollen-furred legs, dream ourselves flecked in gold. but the honeyed gaze turns on us, sting imminent. She is mesmerizing, a razor blade in the eye, an ice pick in the ear, this bee, teetering on the brink. The next poem I'm going to read is from my new collection, Some Electric Hum. I'm sure you can order that through Malvern Books if you're interested. I grew up in Texas, and many of the poems in the book are set in Texas. A theme running through a lot of the book is the perspective of the outsider, looking at outsiders, whether they be people or, in this case, an animal. This poem was inspired by a statue that is in the town near where I grew up. The statue commemorates the killing of an albino buffalo in the county in 1876. It's called White Buffalo Night. His original skin hung on a ranch house wall, but the statue is what everyone saw. Faded fiberglass on a Texas courthouse lawn, the buffalo, once white, had gone a little gray around the edges, but still marked J. Wright Moore's excellent hot-leaded aim. In October, townspeople came out for White Buffalo Days, a pageant of cow-chip pitching and stick horse rodeos, bland enough to make them forget they celebrated killing the one albino who strayed into gun range, his pale fur the luminous beacon in a herd of thick, dark beasts. He stood, a glass-eyed sentinel grown man-made cold, a reminder that people here prize what's different, as long as it's dead. I know the feel of feet cemented to alien ground, breath stopped for being the only one of your kind. And so, first night my own feet were loosed, I stole down silent streets, paved black in asphalt, not meant for buffalo hoof or a girl's barefoot, and found his aching corner on the courthouse square. Tenderly, I broke each leg, then soothed the wound's sorrow with a cool foreign tongue. And wrapped in the robe of my woman's silk skin, together we left this town, with every steps free lightning trailing a jagged glow. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Janice. I love both of those poems, such attention to natural world and wildlife. And then you have that line, people prize what's different as long as it's dead, or something like that. So your work is so insightful. Thank you so much for reading. Up next, we have Karthik Sethuraman. Karthik Sethuraman is an Indian American poet living in California. His short poetry collection, Prayer Under Eyelids, is forthcoming from Nomadic Press in January. Karthik, are you set? Are you good?
Yeah, thank you so much, Bailey, for that introduction. And thank you for Malvern Books for hosting us, and for all the other great readers who've read so far and are going to read after me. I'm so glad to be here today. And also just thank you to Borderlands. I grew up around Houston, so it's really an honor to be part of the Texas Poetry Review. Today, I'm going to be reading the poem that's in the collection, that's in Borderlands this issue. And it begins actually with a excerpt from one of my favorite sorts of collections by Roberto Bolaño called Antwerp. And the sentence that it begins with is, the poem is called Poem Has Failed Detective. And it begins with this excerpt. The images set off down the road, and yet they never get anywhere. They're simply lost. A poem should clank a little, roll around in a belly, offer cover from heat, and even by night, small catharses, a scratch off before bed, and by morning prayer, thanks for saving the picture with your mother and sister, blue sun on their chests, and you, small, and squinting at some words that are, and others that become almost anything. Another version of this poem where you die from some undiscovery next to a mile marker, however far you've traveled with gravel in your stems from the garden. That morning you woke with your fingers stitched into a sign, left soul tender from seeds planted, and patience. Your mother a heron, your father the last wasp she ate and spit out into the most compact version of blooming. And all this in a poem reduced to a few missing accessories and bandaged with luggage rope, mother's plastic ring, tearaway elephant calendar, an account of each thing you won't find, dated and signed, carried around in the shape of your mouth.
Thank you so much, Karthik. Wow, that poem was so you have such a gentle voice, and your poem was so deliberate and full of wonder. Thank you so much. Small catharsis is a beautiful phrase. I really appreciate your work. Thank you so much for reading.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kimberly Ann Priest. Kimberly Ann Priest is the author of Slaughter the One Bird, out from Sundress Publications in 2021, Still Life, out from Pank this year, Parrot Flower, out from Glass Poetry Press, also this year, and White Goat Black Sheep from FLP in 2018. She is an associate poetry editor for the Nimrod International Journal of Prose and Poetry and Empathy Reader for the Main Review. You can find her work at kimberlyandpriest.com. Kimberly, please. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks. Nice to meet you all. I think I see some familiar faces actually, which is really stuck enough. So I'm going to read two poems. The first one is from the journal. Ironically, I wasn't sure I wanted to publish this poem because it was based on real life, and it was an awkward experience that's been a part of my life a few times, and I only sent it out to one journal, and that one journal took it. So I was like, okay, I guess it's meant to be in the world. So I'm going to read that first, and then read a second poem on a similar theme. Ghosts. It has taken me a long time to realize I am human, due to the guttural sound I make when I am not having a good time, or the chirp I feel when suddenly cornered by a man twice my size who has just decided I am the one thing he can't let escape from his life, such innocent captivity, and the blimp of speech rising to my throat as though I am about to lay a very large egg. Blup, blup, blup. Tubular speech, attempting to make linear the circular. Trauma is funny. I'm staring at my phone, safe distance between us, trying to explain in a very long text that I'm not crazy, not really, and using some educated jargon, I give details about how the past intrudes into the present and how this is scar tissue in my bone and in my veins, an internal tattoo. I'm rolling up my sleeves now to show the guy on the other end of this conversation all its intricate detail. Really, I say, it is beautiful. It's part of me. But he can't see it. This is all in text. Because by now I'm afraid to confront him face to face, to say that what I meant to say is I never wanted his attention this way, never wanted to be caught, didn't need to be explained. I wasn't hunting or up for a cat and mouse game, but what I did is stumble, fidget with the verbiage, freeze, pretend he had my full attention, smile into his dark brown eyes, an all too compassionate expression, soft brown hair in waves, the arc of his body, transporting me to the arc of his body over me, that other man from my childhood that animates my memory and molests my protests and questions away, and his mouth telling me, it's okay. Your parents said I could do this. As he fingers the switch controlling my whole body, turns me on, turns me off, turns me on, turns me off, then ghosts, never answers any of my texts. So I've experienced trauma and I write a lot about it and I research a lot about it. And so I have a lot of poetry about this topic. My book from Pank is called Still Life. Please take a look at my website, kimberlyandpriest.com. My other social media handles are on there if you want to follow me on anything. But that book comes out this next month. It was a finalist for their 2018 Little Books Awards. So I'm going to read just one poem from that book. They're little prose blocks, and they're quite different from the one I just read. So here we go. My pedophile dates all my future partners. If it is ambivalence, it is the 2 inches of froth dimpled with cream, the way it fizzles of molecules so minuscule, they cannot be scooped up as they multiply in their own white globe of sheen, like a pillow inviting good sleep, the gorgeous matter of a latte, smiling emoji, gleaming bright teeth, how its eyes make a horror of laughter, its simpering white witnesses texting themselves clean, the excuse of himself in the bathroom, the break room, the ramen noodle joint near the corner of Mack and Albert streets, slipped and sloppy, muffled out scream, a siren that pulls into the parking lot behind us, cop assessing the breath of a man who could hardly stand up to weave, his clothes sharp and stylish as the model he is made of, too much height, too much tight, too much discomfort, wearing pants without pleats. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Wow, thank you for that powerful work, Kimberly. I love the way your work goes from it invites the reader almost with your work starts out as so witty and then it turns to these horror scenes at the end. It's so inviting and entrapping at the same time. Really, really powerful work. Thank you so much. All right, next up we have Jeni de la O. Jeni de la O is a storyteller and poet out of Detroit. She edits poetry for Kissing Dynamite and is a co-founder of the Estuary Collective. Jeni de la O, please take it away.
I want to say thank you to all the other readers and to Borderlands for publishing this poem and Malvern for putting this together. I'm going to read my poem from the issue. Back in April, when quarantine was a fresh baby experience for all of us, I took on the 30 for 30, and this is one of the poems that came out of it. And I was sort of thinking about how self-care is so necessary in this moment, but has become this commercialized capitalistic endeavor where the actual rituals are being replaced with commercialism. And so this poem is meant to be read on paper because it's heavy on the footnotes, but I will do my best to read it to you guys here from my self-care tub. It's called Rituals for the End of the World. Draw a bath, add a measure of salt to the water, but make sure the water isn't much warmer than your skin. Using a white cloth, make a bundle of hollyhock, basil, and laurel. Bathe in this water while the moon is high. Tie a red cord around your right hand. To a jar of room temperature water, add thin slices of ginger and 2 peppercorns. In the same glass, arrange petals of striped carnations, yellow tansy, and amaryllis. Cover with tepid water and let steep for several hours. In the full light of sun, bring the infusion to your lips as if to drink it, but pour it out onto the ground instead. Before the sun rises, while the boundary between times remains hazy, take a seat near a window and observe the coloring of the sky. Weave snapdragon, marigold, and foxglove into a small wreath and bind it with a black ribbon. Place the wreath in your oven until it's time to bake bread. Standing in pale moonlight and with a mirror in full view, arrange sweetbriar, stinging nettle, and purple hyacinth into a small bouquet. Try not to gaze at your reflection while working. Slip the arrangement under your pillow for restful sleep. And while she looked back, she became a pillar of salt, and then a crown was given onto him. But your roots mean ambition, I mean amen, and success and renown. And then there was given unto him a great sword. But for you, I lay claim to a symbol of refusal, a declaration of war, pride. Did you know the etymology of amaryllis traces back to the Greek Amarioso, meaning to sparkle. Sparkle, which is a facet of light without the pinion of time. Recall deception and pain and grief, as bright as gold and symbolic of insecurity. You are every more than a pair of scales and a measure of barley. And should death come rattling the windows anyway, Hades, a lapping dog bounding right behind him, sniffing for a wound and eager to take between its piercing teeth your pain. Please forgive me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was an incredible poem. You started out that poem and I was like, wow, I want her voice with me so I can take better care of myself. That sounds so delightful. And yeah, the way it moves to like make you consider like the other side of that, that's really incredible. And for those of you who haven't read it, the form on the page is fantastic, which is another reason to get issue 52 from Malvern Books. But yeah, for the meantime, next up we have Andrea Blancas Beltran, a writer and artist from El Paso, Texas. Her work has recently been selected for publication in Scalawag, About Place Journal, A Dozen Nothing, Glass, a Journal of Poetry, Fog Machine, Grandma, Pilgrimage, and others. Please welcome Andrea Beltran. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to make sure I'm unmuted. Okay. Thank you to Borderlands and Malvern. Thank you, Bailey, for your engaged and thoughtful moderation. And thank you to all of the readers for sharing your work and this virtual space with me today. I'm grateful to be here. I am going to read my poem from this issue, and it is following the form of Lyrae von Cleef Stefanon's Sea Sonnet, Dakar. It was published in Poem a Day in 2018, and it's a sonnet that's meant to be read forward and backward. And I wrote this poem after doing trying to do research on my family. So I grew up here, and the information contained in the census was kind of all over the place, names misspelled. But also while doing this research, I discovered that in 1960, social census here in El Paso, mainly due to the Mexican Revolution and race wars that were occurring here at the time. Here we go. Border sonnet. Oh, and I'm sorry, let me say this. This was the first time on the census that the category persons of Mexican descent was actually recorded. Before that, anybody in El Paso, they weren't listed as Hispanic, they were listed as white. So this was a special designation. Border sonnet. Special census of the population of El Paso, Texas, January 15th, 1916. Tell me, were you Contreras or Contesas then? I cannot follow names. The full census is hidden. 1, excluding Mexican. 2, including Mex. I cannot comprehend the footnoted text. Color, race. City reports will enumerate 1916, excluding Mexican, your fate, 1910, including Mexican, goes here, 1900, including Mexican. The years oscillate when it comes to Mexican or white. One term races the other. Definitions indict, nothing new. Who are you? Designations a game. Sex, color or race, sex and age, marks on a page. Dirty, lousy, the mayor's vocabulary. No one knows how to spell your name. Reports vary. No one knows how to spell your name. Reports vary. Dirty, lousy, the mayor's vocabulary. Sex, color, or race, sex and age, marks on a page, nothing new. Who are you? Designations a game. One term races the other. Definitions indict, oscillate when it comes to Mexican or white. 1900, including Mexican, the years. 1910, including Mexican, goes here. 1916, excluding Mexican, your fate. Color, race. City reports will enumerate. I cannot comprehend the footnoted text. 1, excluding Mexican. 2, including Mex. I cannot follow names. The full census is hidden. Contreras or Contesas, then. Thank you.
Wow, that was such an incredible form. Where did you get the form for that poem from? Could you say that again, please?
Sure, and I'll add it in the comments. It's the title of the poem is called Sea Sonnet Dakar, and the poet is Lyrae van Cleef Stefanon, and it should be on poets.org, but I'll share it in the comments.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for introducing me not only to that poem but that form. I love the way there are so many different implications that form suggests. When who are you also becomes like when are you, with the years oscillating between Mexican and white. I love that suggestion. That's so perceptive. Thank you so much for reading that poem with us. Last but certainly not least is Anuel Rodriguez. Anuel is a Mexican-American poet living in the San Francisco Bay Area. His work has appeared or is forthcoming in the Cincinnati Review, Glass, a Journal of Poetry, Pank, and elsewhere. Anuel, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate the intro. I'm grateful for this opportunity. It's strange how I wrote this poem last year before the pandemic. It's titled Blackout, and it's from the 52, issue 52. And I'll get right into it. Blackout. They put us in darkness, hoping to save us from wildfires. They shut off our power, but it still smokes through our bodies and collects in our bloodstream like sediment. People line up for gas and empty store shelves of batteries, water, and liquor like there's an asteroid on its way. We stock up on food and cold black balloons and escape to the hills. A black-tailed deer comes down from the lip of a hill and crosses our path as if we're not even on the same plane of existence, like we're electric shadows without faces. When we come across the scavenger clean bones of a goat, I begin counting its ribs and teeth so I can replicate its structure in my dreams. Its abacus spine makes me hunger for artificial light. I can feel the mountains at our backs sinking back through the bronze haze of morning into layers of gray like translucent marble. We come close enough to a red-tailed hawk perched on a fence post to see its pale yellow eyes, the color of ochre street lamps, in a buzz of black. The trail leads us to the mouth of what feels like a wooded synesthesia experiment. The time-reddened leaves along the trail stand out like glowing ash against the backdrop of cool, tranquil green. I can almost hear our bones snapping in the gold and yellow leaves with every step on the path. Everything feels vibrant, like different seasons weave through a childhood TV memory. Our psychedelic gasoline bodies feel lighter. The gravity around us feels altered, like we somehow created our own forested planet to hide our innermost pain in the soil and trees that could absorb our ancient fear of fire. I imagine that the world has ended in a blackout. An orange water gun and an empty green glass jug could be the last evidence of human creation. Let us return to the old world newly born, like lightning husk trees, with our throats coughing up heaven like a bright orange flame. That's it.
Thank you so much, Anuel. I love the way your poem turned at the end to envision a better future. I love when poems that are bleak about the state of the world, because the state of the world is bleak. I love when poems do that turn and they start to imagine the possibility of something after. So thank you so much. Like I said, the state of the world is bleak. Please donate to our readers. All of their Venmos and Cash apps are in this chat, and please follow them, support them on social media, share their poems. They all, because they're also talented, have so many poems published up on the line. Check out their websites, check out their social media, read their work. By Borderlands issue 52 from Malvern Books. And yeah, thank you so much for everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. This was a lovely Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much.
And Bailey, you did a wonderful job of moderating here. Thank you for your thoughtful moderation. That was really wonderful. And it looks like Allison Whipple also joined. I know she is very active in the Borderlands editorial board and editorial staff too. So hello to Allison.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry I hopped on late. I came from officiating a socially distant wedding.
Oh, wow.
So this is why I'm still like in my fancy clothes. But I did have a couple of things that I wanted to say. So for those of you who do not know, I am currently the president of the board at Borderlands. And Ignacio shared our, basically it's our event survey. I'm sharing the link again, even though Ignacio already shared it in the chat, just in case people missed it. We do need people to fill this out because this event, as is the journal itself, is sponsored in large part by the Cultural Arts Division of the City of Austin. I'm like, I look so fancy. The Cultural Arts Division of the City of Austin Economic Development Fund. So that link that Ignacio and I both shared, please fill it out. It helps us. We need that so much. I wanted to also direct your attention. I'm going to share another link in the chat. This is our first issue where our featured poet and our featured artist have been the same person, Octavio Quintanilla. So thank you, Faylita Hicks, for getting that together. I'm pretty excited that we've got the same featured artist and featured poet at the same time. And normally, were it not a pandemic, we would have Octavio's art on display at Malvern, but you know, it's a pandemic, everything's a disaster. So we have a virtual art exhibit at our website with pieces beyond what you see in this issue. So please go there, check them out. They are amazing. I am so excited. Octavio's frontextos have been, they've been getting a lot of traction all over the place. So I've been seeing just so many virtual exhibits of his work in the pandemic. So I'm thrilled that Borderlands gets to be a part of the Octavio Quintanilla frontextos craze, because they are amazing pieces. And if you'll indulge me, I would like to read two poems. I'm going to read one of Octavio's poems, but first I'm going to read our in memoriam poem, Wade Martin, as it says in the issues, which the poor clerk at the postal service was like, I'm so sorry, we'll get these out as fast as we can. So they're in transit. I have tracking numbers for every contributor's issue. The poor clerk at the post office was just like, we're doing our best. So so support your post office. You've all supported your post office by receiving a print copy of a print issue of poetry. But Wade Martin was a he was born in the DFW area, and he lived in Austin and then in San Marcos for many years, and he passed this summer. And so this poem originally appeared in the 2014 Texas Poetry Calendar. We've reprinted it with permission. Ramon de Juarez. When he died, No one went to his funeral. No one sent flowers or sang his favorite tune. We cried into pillows in mute alleyways at night behind the garden wall and in the lonely grocery aisle. The figs in the garden dark with Ramon. The breeze in the Chitalpa free with Ramon. So, Wade Martin, you will be missed. And then I thought, just to close, one poem of Octavio Quintanilla. This is on page 89. You take a picture of your father. You take a picture of your father with your new cell phone. The last one you'll take of him, thin and frail, looking like a praying mantis as he brings his hand to his mouth with a piece of bread. If he pretends to eat, it's to appease your hunger to see him eat, and not to appease what no longer gnaws at his belly, no longer the hollow he knows. It's over and you know it. Hours you all have now after wasting years in silence, you in the same path as his to reach this moment where you hold up your heads like dim lamps and face each other. All light now as you search in his eyes for closure, anything that doesn't require words. A doorknob, perhaps, that opens the sky before you. I love that poem, and thank you for being here. As sad as I am that we cannot meet at Malvern, since Borderlands draws poets from honestly across the world, I think this is the first time we've had as many contributors as we've had at the actual reading. So it has been so lovely to actually hear the poems that I've helped proofread in person. That has been such a delight. And yeah, thank you for being here. I'm so glad to be part of this. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Well, so glad to see everyone. And thanks again on behalf of Malvern Books. And we hope to hear from you if you'd like to purchase any books or any of the issues of Borderlands. So give us a call if you'd like. We'll be sounding off now. So thanks so much. And